Hello everyone, and welcome to Restorative Health Solutions. If you understand what's making you sick, then you can start to understand how to get better. More information is power. Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Warren, and today I'm going to talk through some practical advice and just the experience of living with Lyme disease and what it's like for many of my patients, what it was like for my family, and just some tips that we found along the way that can be helpful as you try to live your life through this. So for starters, Lyme disease, one of the most important and frustrating emotional parts for people. And when I catch people that are just so discouraged, is there is an up and down nature to Lyme disease most of the time. The big symptoms are fatigue. The big symptoms are pain, some kind of pain, joint pain, head pain, neck pain, muscle pain. And there's all kinds of crazy neurological symptoms. And of course, in my practice, I see about 80% of my patients are in the neurological category. So tons and tons and tons of odd brain feeling, kind of things. So the first thing that I'll say is when there's an ebb and flow to your energy, this is a question I get so frequently is, what do I do when I have energy? And what do I do when I don't have energy? And it's very hard for people to plan anything. Most people, because some of this up and down energy, it makes it hard to make a commitment to something because you don't know if on that day you'll feel good or on that day you'll feel bad. And ironically, my people who are just bad all the time, who are actually sicker than my up and down patients, emotionally, they're much more simple because they just expect to feel bad. Everyone around them expects them to feel bad. And so it's a smoother, slower process. I think when you have better days, not good days, but when you have better days, it makes the worst days. You have that contrast. And emotionally, what I see is people who have these up and down days are just emotionally in a much harder spot because everyone around them doesn't know, or is this a good day, is this a bad day? So practically speaking, if you're someone who has up and down nature, I'll give you a couple tips. But one, if you have a family or significant other, who's taking care of you, it's be able to communicate to them very clearly if you're having a good day or a bad day, so they know. When my wife was sick for 7 years, we had kids, and we did our best to try to live life with some accommodations, but we did our best to try to do things. And it was just as simple as if I knew she was really struggling that day, or if she wasn't, it helped me, when I'm coming in to know, okay, how much help do you need and what's the night going to look like, or these kind of things. So that's first. It's just kind of communication with people around you in just a simple way so they know you have good days and bad days. And if you can communicate, hey, I'm having a tough time right now. That allowed me, maybe when we're out at a social gathering, out at a family event, or out at something to help adjust. If she wanted to stay, we could stay. And if we wanted to go, we could go. And it just allowed me, we just had that communication. And that is kind of in line with the second thing that I'll really say is one of the, kind of self-care things that I really, really recommend is we don't want to overbook ourselves. I think when living in America, I've realized how many people have very, very, very jam-packed schedules. And so most of my Lyme patients or chronically sick patients have realized they have to pull back somewhat. But on the flip side, you don't want to pull back completely because you do want to participate in life. I always tell my patients, we're going to try to get you better while you're living your life the best you can. And if you just cut everything out, then life becomes very miserable. So we want you to not get yourself overextended, but also we want you to try to still, be there on some level. So whether that means I'm going to try to make it to church, or I'm going to try to make it to a family event, or I'm going to try, to just go to things and be part of things. Also, there are certain people who say like, well, I'm afraid of overdoing it on days I feel good. And there's a consciousness to that. I tell people I don't want you to run a marathon on days you feel good, but also living a completely sedentary lifestyle leads to a ton of its own problems, leads to depression, leads to energy problems, leads to overweight, leads to its own issues. So I also tell people on days you feel a little bit better, if you have this up and down symptoms, you want to do something. Now, you don't want to do everything. That's the balance for people is you kind of have permission to, okay, I need to do some things, but I'm not going to do everything, and give yourself kind of permission to say no at some point, but also Some people I have to give permission to say yes. And that's really a conversation that I have with patients is some patients are really, really ignoring themselves, and I have to pull them back and say, you need to take a little more self-care. Maybe we need, a little more forgiveness for yourself that you can't do the workouts right now. Okay. When you have Lyme disease, is not a good time to do a heavy intensive training program, but you also don't want to be completely sedentary if your body allows you to get some work. One of the most frustrating parts about living with Lyme is just the medical gaslighting that still happens. The CDC and NIH acknowledged that Lyme was real somewhere in 2022, 2023. But practically speaking, I have not really seen a change yet. Medical community, when you go to your doctor, still is following. There's no new recommendations. There's more research happening since that went down, but the guidelines haven't been changed. So we have an article where we go through a published work from December of 2023. What's practically happening when you have Lyme is medical doctors are just telling you it's stress, it's all in your head, it's psychosomatic, there's no such thing as chronic Lyme, still gets said a lot, even though that's now been totally disproven and studied. They're telling you the tests are unreliable, even though they're running unreliable tests, and then they don't like the more thorough tests. That just still blows my mind. So, I'm just aware that has not changed yet. And so it's very frustrating when you just start ping-ponging through the medical system. And so I would just say that's when you need to find, a Lyme doctor and have, a test run from one of these Lyme specialty companies. We really like Vibrant. I think they have the best test on the market right now, but Hygienics is great, and DNA Connections is great, and Galaxy is great. There's multiple specialty lab companies that are running a more thorough, more advanced panel, and you need something from one of those companies at a minimum to start to rule this really in or out. One of the questions I get most frequently is how much exercise or movement should you do? Because Lyme frequently causes this post-exercise malaise or post-exertional fatigue. So you do something and you crash, you do something and you crash. I call it push, crash, push, crash, push, crash. That's my patient's experience. The medical term for that is called post-exertional malaise. Super common with Lyme. Now, what is key, as we said above, is we really like activity that's less high impact than traditional Americans. So we really like more mind-body therapies, Tai Chi, yoga, meditation, deep breathing, these kinds of things. We really like low-impact things. So I have people who do some swimming. I have people who do some biking. I have people who do some walking. But the key here is you need to get some activity because being sedentary is very bad for you. But this is not the time for really heavy exercise. The key here is when I'm talking to someone and going, what exercise are you comfortable doing? What can you do? Some people, it's as simple as a basic stretching routine, walking to get the mail. I mean, they're that bad. Other people, it's just realizing, okay, I need to be moving, whether it's a short walk or it's something simple. But this is one of the questions I have with almost every patient is what kind of movement are we doing and how soon can we incorporate it in the protocol? It's okay if you can't do it right away. But I tell all my patients, sooner or later, you will exercise your way out of this. And that is wild to them at the beginning when they can't. Every time they exercise, they get worse. The key for us is once I can get the bug out, the inflammation out, you have to move in order to heal the body. And so getting to that point is a huge step forward in anyone's protocol and one that I'm really pushing for as we go forward. Another thing that's important is sleep. What's hard is Lyme disease creates sleep problems, both people who sleep excessively and then can't get to sleep and then wake up. So also helping people get better sleep. Your basics of sleep, and we have a whole article on sleep, but your basics of sleep are please turn screens off. That really fixes 50% of sleep problems. Also, if we can get more movement, that fixes sleep problems. Can't always do that because of the post-exertional malaise. So we're kind of wrapped in a pickle here for people. From a supplement standpoint, our Brain Mag, which is the magnesium 3 and 8 before bed, can help so many people sleep. Ashwagandha or other adrenal helping herbs, but we particularly think ashwagandha for many people who can't sleep, are the supplements that we generally recommend. And of course, you need something more complicated than that. We can always work on an individual level, but turning screens off, trying to get some exercise during the day, ashwagandha and magnesium can go a long way for helping so many of my patients sleep, and partly sleeping just helps everything else. When we talk about living with Lyme, This often takes time to help heal people. I tell my patients 6 to 18 months is a good rough time frame. About 90% of my patients fall in that category. Now, other Lyme doctors will give you other time frames, but I have asked every Lyme doctor I've been to at a conference in the last decade, how long does it take you to get better? And they'll give you, generally speaking, a 6 to 18 month or a 1 to 2 year time frame for so many of them. After they tell you it's variable, the first thing they'll say is, well, it varies. And then after that, they'll say, well, give me 6 months to 2 years is kind of the range that most people fall into. So this is a gradual process. And I tell people we're going to be the tortoise beats the hare, and we need to embrace kind of that. We're looking for gradual and boring, because every time I try to go really, really fast, it doesn't actually work. It just ends up being more drama, and it's not actually faster. When I've worked with other doctors or been under other doctors who tried to go faster, I found there was more drama when they pushed harder, but also still took 6 to 18 months or 6 to 24 months. So there's a point where I tell people your body's going as fast as it'll go, and we need to just embrace that. We're going to slowly gain back, pieces and parts of life. I was thinking of Aaron, who just recently did a Google review for us. I'm recording this September 1st. I think he did one in August for us of 2025 here. I had a conversation with him, and he's so healthy now. Our last conversation was just about all the things he's been doing. And he was sick for almost 10 years. And the last 6, 9 months plus, he's been just healthy, living life, doing all these activities. But it took us, it's fairly typical. It took us a year, to get exactly where he wanted. It took us, I don't know, when he first saw progress, he tells it in some of his Google review that he just took some edge off at 3 to 6 months, and he started making progress, and he started doing more things. And so as you get healthy, it's important to do more things, but also to realize, like in Aaron's case, he'd been sick for a decade. So, now he's doing more and more over time, but he's been healthy for, 9 months maybe or so now. And it's still a process. If you've been sick for 10 years, you're not going to regain, everything. You're also 10 years older. You're not going to be able to do everything you could do. I tell my patients a lot, I can't make you 20 again. It's hard if they're 20, right? We think you can be healthy. You can move forward with life. You have a wonderful life ahead of you, but it does, take some time and patience, both to get healthy and then get back to kind of the fitness level that you want to be at. But that's exciting for patients. Once you're feeling reasonably healthy and then we're working on your fitness, it's a really exciting thing. I get pictures from people who are, Dr. Warren, here I hiked up a mountain, or Dr. Warren, here I am on the boat. And this is someone who had so much motion sickness they could hardly, get in a car, or hardly, they're sitting in my chair telling me they're dizzy and they're unstable and they're nauseous, and now they're on a boat in a Minnesota lake and they're like, thank you. And that's fun, guys. I get that kind of feedback frequently, which gives me a lot of hope when I'm staring more people at, in my office or over video and they're going, can I get better? My answer is yes. Because I've seen so many people beat this Lyme disease condition and go forward and live a healthy, great life that, I firmly believe there's a way for your body to recover and heal, and you to go forward in a healthy way too. So you're looking at next steps. I strongly encourage you to work with a Lyme care provider. I think this is very hard to do on your own. There's a myriad of books, there's a myriad of protocols out there, and I think they give you a great starting point. If you want to try one of those protocols for 3 months or 6 months and see if you get better, that'd be awesome. Whether it's Buhner, he has a book, he has several books. You can grab the Buhner protocol for whatever you have and just try it. But really, if you get, 3-6 months in and you're not doing great, I think one of the best values is, with our approach of testing, knowing what you're doing, and then retesting, I can help adjust protocols and keep them on target. And what I really find that people can't do by themselves, it's very hard to do, is to kind of troubleshoot 3 months, 6 months, 9 months down the road when the protocol's not working, or it's half working but half not working, is people don't know really where to move it or how to track the progress. And that's something that we're really, really good in, is, okay, how do you troubleshoot through a protocol in case you're getting side effects, and how do you move it over time so that you can ultimately be successful? I'm Dr. Warren. I hope that you have found this video helpful.